Hello, friends, and welcome to Home is Where the Body Is. I'm Jen, an ADHD woman with EDS, POTS, complex PTSD, and OCD, shaped by an abusive religious upbringing. I spent much of my life feeling like I was balancing precariously over an endless pit, constantly reaching for a stable home that always seemed just out of reach. Today, I can honestly say that home is wherever I am right now, built on the stable ground that's growing out of a deepening relationship with my body and myself. In this podcast, I share the lived experiences that brought me here in case it helps someone feel less alone or supports them on their own journey home. I used to think one person could change the world. I used to think that person could be me. And if I just gave enough, if I was dedicated enough, brilliant enough, relentless enough, I would ultimately succeed. I had to, because otherwise, what was I worth? The only things I had going for me were brains and stubbornness, after all. And I was inundated by patriarchal messages saying that my only worth as a woman was as an appendage to a man, and by capitalist messages insisting that my only worth as a human was what I could produce for others. I remember trying to earn my worth literally throughout my life with money. I think it started when I realized that to my dad, money was love. Like, he never specifically said it, and I don't necessarily think he would even agree that he thinks that. But he just made it very obvious. Like, whenever he wanted to do something and express his quote love, it would be some sort of money thing, giving money, buying you things, but those things always had strings attached. So it was this weird sort of like money is love, but it's also a controlling love. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. But I was also raised because of the conservative Christian religion cult I was raised in. Um, I was raised thinking that the gender roles were the man shows love by going out and making money, and then the woman, so like the man's worth is him going out and making money, and the woman's worth is cooking and cleaning and all of those whatever woman gender role things. So I was raised thinking, right, that if you can't cook and clean, you have to do the other gender role and bring in the money. And like emotional labor, mental labor, and caring for your own disabled body don't count. So I also want to say I'm of course not blaming people who struggle to support a disabled partner, like who struggle to survive in the world when they have a disabled partner, but rather I'm blaming the society that has woefully inadequate disability supports. And I'm also blaming the gender roles that render certain types of labor invisible, like taking care of yourself and all of the invisible emotional labor and mental labor that a lot of women do. Believing that I alone had to change the world, that my worth depended on succeeding at something big enough to matter, that wasn't ambition. It was survival math. Worth calculated in output, in impact, in how loudly the world would notice I'd been here at all. I no longer believe one person could or even should change the world. I'm tired, genuinely tired, of watching great men get celebrated like their success happened in a vacuum. Believing I had to be the one who succeeded single handedly or I was worthless, that type of thinking was exhausting. And I'm tired of seeing celebrations of great men, because it usually is men, treating their success as if it can somehow be separated from the women in their lives who did their emotional labor for them, or treating it like it can be separated from the laboring class who served them for exploitative wages, or just their blind luck at being born to a white, well off, highly educated family. I think it's time we stop celebrating a person and start celebrating people. So, I have been educated as a nuclear engineer. So for me, someone who comes to mind when I think of a great man whose success I watched get credited to him alone is Oppenheimer and the other Manhattan Project bros, but mainly Oppenheimer. He's remembered as the father of the atomic bomb, a single genius narrative that erases everyone else in the room. From what I understand, his personality is widely described as brilliant but cutting, sharp tongued, arrogant, so kind of an asshole, right? Arrogant in a way that shaped how people around him had to accommodate him. And I think a lot of women in science workplaces have a lot of experience even today, right, in working with men like that who are kind of assholes, but you're expected to accommodate him. And I looked into Oppenheimer's wife, Kitty. She was a trained botanist who briefly worked as a lab tech herself, but mostly got sidelined into domestic and social labor. She hosted gatherings for other women to relieve the pressure of Los Alamos life during the Manhattan Project, and was Robert's primary confidant, Robert being Robert Oppenheimer. He leaned on her for advice on the project itself, and none of that shows up in this narrative of Father of the Bomb. And what I find particularly sad, by the end of the war, Oppenheimer was a celebrity. Kitty was an alcoholic. That's what the invisible labor cost her. I also think it's interesting that I refer to him as Oppenheimer and her, right, that's his last name. She is technically also Oppenheimer, but men tend to be referred to throughout history by the last name, and the woman is like Mrs. Whatever, or she just gets her first name. Anyway, women weren't absent from the science of the Manhattan Project either. Hundreds of the scientists on the Manhattan Project were women. Physicists, chemists, engineers, mathematicians. They did the work and still got erased, right? So, in conclusion, this is something that just has always bothered me. Oppenheimer and like other Manhattan Project bros get credited for being the father of the atomic bomb and such. Although, of course, it's debatable, is being the father of the atomic bomb something we should celebrate? I don't know, but I'm not talking about that right now, just that um, he gets all this credit, and there were literally hundreds of people working on this project, and so it bothers me. It has always bothered me. Each individual contribution to science, to the advancement of human rights, or whatever cause matters to you, is just a drop in the bucket. But how else do you fill a bucket except one drop at a time? Anyone who's ever lived with a pipe leak or a roof leak knows that enough drops added together over time and the bucket will overflow. I don't have to change the world for my existence to matter, and neither do you. Sometimes just existing in a system that actively doesn't want us to is the contribution. And what does just existing look like? For me, sometimes it looks like literally just taking care of my body and mind for a whole day or a part of the day when it's necessary. Sometimes I don't get much done, or I don't get anything done. If the whole day has to be taken up by resting or icing and heating my sore muscles, sometimes it feels like it takes the whole day and all my energy just to get up, shower, eat meals, and then get ready for bed so I can do it all over again. Sometimes just existing might mean, for me, continuing to ask for accommodations, even knowing I'll get rejected, but just doing it to assert, hey, I'm still here. Sometimes it feels very discouraging to me because I will request accommodations or I will try to assert my rights as a disabled person and push for inclusion, and I don't know if it's ever succeeded. Oh no, I got work from home at my last job, which was super helpful. But then, of course, I got laid off, which was not helpful. But I also asked for other accommodations at that job, and that was not very successful. So, what I'm trying to say is, I still think there is a value and a contribution, even in just being like, hello, I'm existing as a disabled person. I know you won't grant these accommodations, but I'm going to ask for them anyway, just to be like, hello, I'm here. Like, it meant a lot to me. I have a good friend who said that she admires how I just like keep asking for accommodations and keep pushing for inclusion, even though it keeps failing. And that really meant a lot to me and opened up my eyes to like, yeah, sometimes just existing and being like, I'm disabled, I won't pretend I'm not, is a contribution. Sometimes just existing means existing as a single woman in a patriarchal society who isn't actively looking for a man to take care of her. I know a lot of women are kind of just, or straight women are kind of just giving up on dating. I'm not straight, but I have been thinking about kind of focusing on only dating women or maybe just like not really dating much. And so I think sometimes just existing can be like, I'm a single woman in a patriarchal society that doesn't want me to be single, that wants me to attach myself to the nearest man and have bare minimum standards, right? So there's not necessarily some like grand love story of like, oh, I found this wonderful man who's not patriarchal at all, or oh, I found this lovely woman and now I'm, just off, um, going off into the sunset with her. It could be there is no success. Like you're just existing and you're just like, well, I'm not gonna build some romance with a man who doesn't meet my standards, a man who hasn't done the work to deconstruct patriarchy. So, anyway, I won't go too far down that rabbit hole, but I also think sometimes just existing means being an unemployed person who refuses to see being unemployed as a judgment on their character, or who isn't willing to burn themselves out for the profit of the capitalist overlords. Right? I feel like that describes me. I'm currently unemployed and I am really struggling to find jobs that won't burn me out, and it just I'm just tired of burning myself out so that the capitalist overlords can profit. So maybe sometimes just existing, again, there's no big success. It's not like you found the perfect job and got all the accommodations. It's not like you went off and started your own disability owned company. I mean, all those things would be great, but not everybody can do that. So maybe sometimes existing is you're just being unemployed and you're just refusing to feel like it's says anything bad about you. You're refusing to grovel um, for employers and recruiters who don't care about your time and that sort of thing. But I also want to add, I know a lot of us have to get or take jobs that profit people we don't like. I totally get that. In my industry, it seems like everything is run by like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Peter Thiel and all of these people who I very much do not want to profit. But because they are the tech billionaires, it's like, how do you get a job that doesn't profit them in some way. So I totally get that. Um, and I also get that there's a difference between a survivable job that feels like shit, but it's survivable, and a job that literally destroys you without even paying you enough to survive while working there. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not advocating for refusing any job that has any benefit to people we don't like, to billionaires. I'm not saying we should all refuse every job that has some bad qualities that requires us to kowtow to some aspects of capitalism. Like, whatever works for you and is survivable for you is what you should go with, I think. Um, I'm just trying to say that I do think it's possible to kind of allow ourselves to get trampled by certain employers or certain hiring practices or whatever. Um, so I do think that sometimes just existing is just being like, no, I won't do 18 rounds of unpaid interviews and a 20-hour take home assessment just for the chance of getting like a super low paying job that will probably burn me out once I get it. That's what I'm trying to say. Whereas capitalism would say, no, you should definitely do that, and you should feel terrible if you don't do that. But I'm also saying that I also understand that within capitalism, we have to make trade offs in order to survive. Anyway, none of us live in a vacuum. Very few things get accomplished alone. So maybe the goal was never to be the hero, maybe it was just to be one of the drops, one of many, that over generations fills the bucket that changes the world. And that on its own is enough. As we come to the end of this episode, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If something here resonated, you're always welcome to reach out or share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to support this podcast, the most helpful thing you can do is subscribe on YouTube and engage with the video. Like, comment, or share it with someone who might need it. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leaving a review there also really helps. You've been listening to Home is Where the Body Is. I'm Jen, and I wish you a safe journey home.